And here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share my first update on my experience with the Microsoft Surface Pro 8. Now, I will start off this video by saying that Microsoft has done an excellent job here with the Surface Pro 8. It really is the best Surface they've ever made, and I think it shows in terms of design, functionality, literally every element, every detail is excellent. It isn't perfect, but if you're after a tablet that can also replace an Ultrabook, Microsoft has finally done it, in my opinion. They've improved the pen, they've improved the display by making it larger, 13 inches now, 120 hertz refresh rate, which I could argue we absolutely do not need because the battery hit that it takes in exchange for that refresh rate, which you oddly don't really need unless you're gaming or doing something to that effect, which the Surface Pro 8 can do, but isn't designed for because there's no dedicated GPU. Those are a bit of head scratchers that seem more like marketing gimmicks. But when we get down to the bottom line of, again, the design, the new Intel 11th Gen processors, the addition of Thunderbolt 4 connectivity, something that the Surface lineup has always needed but never had, and the fact that we now have Windows 11, I think this is something that anyone who's ever had interest in the Surface line of products is going to be really satisfied owning. Now, in the same vein, pricing has become extreme. It used to, last generation, all of 1 year ago, was priced at a starting point of a little over $750 US. Now we're starting off at $1,100. And this specific machine that I'm giving you an update on is $1,900 US. That's for the Core i7-1185 G7 quad-core Intel 11th Gen CPU, complemented by 16 gigs of RAM and a 0.5 terabyte SSD. But before I get into any more details, let's take a look and a listen to audio and video, because that's another thing this device really excels at, in my opinion, between, again, the quality of the display as well as the audio performance, considering this is under 2 pounds, the tablet itself. Just jump ahead. Wi-Fi performance has been excellent thus far. You can see that right there. And if you're wondering about the black bars on the top and bottom, it's letterboxing. That's a result of the aspect ratio. 3:2 aspect ratio means that when you watch 16:9 content, which is the vast majority of what we watch in this day and age, unfortunately, that's what you're going to experience. So nothing except for traditional work will be literally full screen when it comes to content consumption. But that is really, in my opinion, not an issue, but something everyone needs to be aware of. Now, Windows 11, this video isn't going to touch on very much, but I will say it appears, at least at first sight and touch, that Microsoft has improved the overall experience, and this is the first time we've gotten a new operating system in a long time. And, some people will argue that it's a revision, a skin, but it is absolutely optimized for touch, which is something it hasn't been previously. And I think that a lot of the nuance with the changes that Windows 11 brings is aimed squarely at Apple users and satisfying them rather than Windows users. And I don't think that's a bad thing. It doesn't mean that it's going to change my life, because I'm not an Apple user. I haven't been since the 90s. But here we are, and Windows 11 seems refreshing. So we'll see how it plays out. I haven't seen it create any performance issues. Let's take a look at the read and write speeds of that 512 gig SSD. Now, for me, this was underwhelming, but it's really a result of what Microsoft is literally using. The actual form factor of the SSD, which is user upgradable, which I don't think is a bragging point at all. I think, the Surface has always been designed to be disposable. It's not a good thing. It's not good for the environment, but most electronics are. And this did always have a sealed battery. It was designed to not be opened. So it's not bad that they're giving us the ability to upgrade the SSD, and you don't have to buy a Microsoft branded one. But the truth of the matter is, as I stated in my unboxing of the Surface Pro 8, you're far better off picking up, an NVMe enclosure and getting an NVMe drive of your choice. This is a Sabrent Thunderbolt enclosure. I'll include links to these things because they're just no-brainers. This is Sabrent's 8 terabyte Rocket Q, the Extreme, which works with both Thunderbolt and non-Thunderbolt devices. This is incredibly expensive, but you will never need, I won't say, well, not never, but likely won't need another storage device other than this in your life for the foreseeable future. And the reason I say this is some people, I've already seen a few comments where people have said, why not just get the storage capacity I need? Well, the i5 256 gig version of this product is $1,400 US. Again, this is $1,900, so in order to gain literally the clock speed difference between the i5 and the i7, as well as that additional 256 gigabytes, you are shelling out, again, you're going from $1,400 to $1,900. So, for $500, you can easily buy one of these enclosures as well as a 2 terabyte NVMe drive. And now that we have, and you'll still have some money to spare, and now that we have Thunderbolt 4 ports, the operating speed of that drive in one of these enclosures, it won't be literally what you're seeing here. It'll be more like a little bit over a gigabyte on the read and write per second. But you will not have a distinguishable performance difference in terms of software you use, applications you run, and that will outlive your Surface Pro 8. You'll be able to use that with other machines, other laptops down the road, the Surface Pro 9, if it's in your future, or 10. So that money is, in my opinion, a much better investment going towards an external drive. That's what I would personally do. This isn't a matter of whether or not you have enough money. It's a matter of whether or not it is worth the actual purchase. There's a difference between having enough and knowing whether or not something is worth the price difference. So while I love the Surface Pro 8, and so far the experience has been great, all around, I mean, the webcam, 1080p now, there is a remarkable quality difference. It's not going to blow you away, but it's much better than previous generations and the majority of laptops that I have reviewed, both in the past as well as presently. Those are all tangible improvements. But again, when it comes to storage, do yourself a favor, get an external drive. I don't care if it's Sabrent or, picking up, a Samsung 980 Pro, whatever it is, do yourself a favor, get one of these, get an enclosure, and fix your storage problem, because Microsoft is not doing the right thing when it comes to storage. I mean, to have to spend over $2,000 in order to get a 1 terabyte version of this machine in 2021 is borderline criminal. But that's, look, Microsoft knows that they're making a product that in some ways is unlike anything else on the market, but in other ways is like many things on the market. And that's my next point. So all these improvements are fantastic. The Surface Pro 8, as I've said, the best you've ever touched and will use. Battery life, nowhere near the 16 hours that they're claiming. I didn't expect it. I was hoping for at least 10. It looks like 10 to 12 is doable. 50% brightness, 60 hertz refresh rate. Out of the box, this will be operating at the 60 hertz refresh. There is no adaptive refresh yet, to my knowledge. I'm assuming at some point Microsoft will end up giving that to us, so that this way the Surface Pro 8 will be able to distinguish when it should switch over to 120 hertz. So examples, gaming, if you're web browsing and scrolling, it could throw it into 120 hertz. But realistically, again, I don't see the necessity for 120 hertz. It's a marketing gimmick. Apple brought it to the table. If you're gaming, it's real. For everything else, nah. So that out of the way, battery life looks fine. It's not amazing. I was hoping for amazing. You can always hope, but setting expectations to some realistic standpoint, it's not. It's again 10 to 12 hours will be great, and that is very good. There's nothing wrong with that. When it comes to benchmarking, so far what I'm seeing is what I would expect from the 11th gen i7-1185G7 that's inside of here, which is really good because when you think about the fact that this is under 2 pounds, the tablet itself, incredibly thin, lightweight, the fact that Microsoft has managed to get performance that's comparable to Ultrabooks, basically the same, if not better than. It's on par with Lenovo's X12 detachable. That's really good because this is, basically almost a nearly hermetically sealed tablet. And I do still think there is a great novelty to having a device like this that is a literal 2-in-1, that you have a tablet that's also a computer. The thing is, and this is what I was mentioning that I'd get to, is that once upon a time when the Surface Pro became real hardware in Gen 1 and that it evolved, there was nothing else on the market like it. 2-in-1s didn't exist. We didn't have things like the Spectre line of 2-in-1s, Lenovo's Yoga line of laptops. So there was a novelty and a premium market for this device. And I'm just not sure that same desire, that same need to have the 2-in-1 experience exists. Now, I'm not saying I want to carry a laptop and a tablet. I'm just saying that because we have so many Ultrabooks with essentially the same specifications, but by far and large better for far less a price tag, that also happen to be more versatile in most cases, higher resolution displays that sport OLED panels rather than IPS, dubbed as something it's not. Pixel Sense's marketing, it's an in-plane switching panel. It is high res, don't get me wrong, but we're not looking at 4K, and I'm not saying you need 4K in a 13-inch package, but there are so many elements that Ultrabooks like the Spectre 13, 14, the Yoga line of 2-in-1s bring. Again, is this something that can be justified as a high-price premium item the way it once was? And ironically, in the past, when I do think that it owned the market of this sort of product, and there was nothing like it, because those 2-in-1s were either didn't exist or in infancy mode stages, it was less expensive to buy a Surface Pro. Now, I'm sure that when Black Friday rolls around, even this year, which is all of a month and change away, these things are going to be on sale. And anyone who knows the Surface Pro lineup, by the following year, it's like giveaway time. So that likely will stay the same. But the fact that Microsoft, even though I, again, give them full credit for modernizing the design, slimming down the bezels, giving us Thunderbolt connectivity, a really good webcam, and of course that new pen, which I haven't really talked about, but I will now, it still begs to question, has the Surface Pro become, as cool as it is, less desirable because so many more options are in the marketplace that haven't made it useless, but have left it nowhere near as important as it once was in the industry. And that's at least how I sort of feel about it. So while I love the Surface Pro, I always will, it has a place in my heart, it's just that now 2-in-1s are so good and so much less expensive and so much more feature rich that even with the redesign, larger display, better webcam, Thunderbolt 4, and of course new Slim Pen 2 that has haptic feedback that is going to give you an even more realistic drawing or inking experience on this tablet, I'm just left wondering whether or not the market, consumers, really care about this the way they once did. Because once upon a time, when anyone would ask me what laptop to buy, I would immediately say, how much do you want to spend and how powerful does it need to be? And if they weren't looking for a desktop replacement, I would point them at a Surface Pro. Now, it's not so easy to point them at a Surface Pro, because for this price, again, $2,000 after tax, more than that depending on your state, here in the US, you can buy a powerful laptop and it will weigh only a little bit more than this 2 pounds. It's a little over 2 with the type cover, which of course is not included. This is $280 to get the slim pen type cover, signature cover combo. And that again leaves me in a position where I can't really make an argument for not jumping on board with 2-in-1s that in many ways I see as more functional, capable, competent, and as I've said, more feature rich, and they're less expensive. So this is the challenge that Microsoft faces. I feel like they've latched on to Apple's marketing concept that brand is more important than product, and sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Apple made a very clear statement this year by doing nothing revolutionary with the iPhone. What they did that was revolutionary was lowered prices. And I think Microsoft is a generation away from finding out that they're going to have to do the same thing. So this may sound like I'm ragging or ranting about the Surface Pro 8. I am not. It is without doubt one of the nicest Ultrabooks ever made. And if you want a tablet that is also an Ultrabook, it is the best product of its kind. Absolutely no question. But you are paying for it in spades. You are essentially handing over $1,000 more than this device. Maybe it's not $1,000, but at least $800 more than it is worth. And I think because they've created this new price point, this had to come with it. Years past, I could excuse it. I could say it's $750, $900, $1,000, $1,500. They could get away without including these items. But now that they've made it a starting point of $1,100, even building into the fact that this thing is going to go on sale, you've got to include the type cover. Because how on earth, at over $2,000 now, before tax, with the keyboard and pen, are you really going to compete with products that are essentially, as I keep saying, more functional, give you more flexibility, and can actually give you newer tech? I mean, just having a 4K OLED for me personally on my Spectre 13T makes it miles better than this machine. Now, before that ever existed, the Surface Pro had me at hello. And you see what I did there with Windows Hello, which, by the way, works brilliantly, and it should. Also, of course, the 10 megapixel camera on the back works well, but it's not going to replace your smartphone when it comes to taking pictures. It's just good to have. So I think for business pros, this is still a no-brainer. It's going to be the lightest and most capable option that corporate USA is going to want to buy. The NFL, they probably are due an update on the sidelines to buy a brand new batch of Surface Pro 8s, but they probably won't, because the reality of what they do with it, the Surface Pros that they have on the sidelines, is that there won't be any tangible difference or change. The speakers are the best they've ever been. The display is the best it's ever been. The webcam is the best it's ever been. The pen, keyboard. We even have a new OS. These are all fantastic things. I just don't know if this form factor matters anymore, because there are so many different options when it comes to Ultrabooks. It's not the early 2010s anymore. And as a result, the uniqueness, I fear, has vanished. Tell me what you think. I'm curious, but you already know where I'm at with this. Because of Iris Xe, gaming is the same go that it was on essentially every Ultrabook that has it. So that's good. That means, Counter-Strike, Rust. You can play, older games. You're not going to play any new AAA titles on this. And you're going to play them in 1080p. You're not going to run them in the native resolution of this 13-inch IPS panel. So that's nice. So this is also the most powerful when it comes to gaming of any Surface device, Surface Pro device in history. But I wonder, as much as I do love the form factor, and I still think it is really nice to take, when it comes to traveling, nothing beats it. But we are in a pandemic, and this is why Microsoft didn't even give us a new Surface device last year, is because they knew no one was going anywhere. So while this is a really big improvement from a design and hardware perspective, and again, I'll keep repeating it because I don't want people to think I don't appreciate the Surface Pro. I do. I just wonder if any of you do anymore, because I know how many people are all in on two-in-ones that just have 360-degree hinges with touchscreens and so many more options, so many more ports. I mean, when it comes to I/O, I think this really is enough. But, we don't even have a micro SD card slot anymore. And so many laptops that I cover have just such a wide array of capability and competency that the Surface Pro's form factor is its only selling point now. It used to be that its form factor and capability were the selling point. Now, it's literally just the form factor. So, and branding a la Apple, which is what Microsoft is literally betting the farm on. So, so far, I do really like it. It's hard to put down. It does, in many ways, render, the separate tablet obsolete. So I think it does realize the original concept as best as it ever could, but it should. Does this mean I would give up my Samsung, tab? I'm not so sure, and that's part of the problem. And that will be a separate review for a separate day. But I can tell you now, if you're wondering whether or not this is the best Surface ever made, if you're wondering whether or not it has the best display, battery life, overall performance of any Surface ever made, it does. Is it worth its asking price? Well, I guess it's a matter of whether or not you are married to Microsoft's branding campaign, because that's really what this is about, not the hardware that you're getting for the money. Which is unfortunate, because in days past, that used to be Microsoft's approach, a balanced approach of really nice hardware at a price that was also competitive. Those days are long gone. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them, hit that like button, and as usual, please feel free to subscribe, and please stay safe. Later.